Hi, this is Dr. Ray Nanis with Optimum Wellness Solutions. Today we're going to begin the discussion of what I call the owner's manual for the human body. The owner's manual is an acronym, and I always tell everybody I am dyslexic, so I had to misspell it a little bit to make sure that I get all of the letters in. And over the course of the next several videos, we're going to be discussing what I consider the owner's manual for the human body. The letters are O, W, N, N, E, R, S. And over the course of the next several videos, we're going to be discussing exactly what each one of those are, and hopefully diving into them a little bit to give you some information, some things that you can actually do to improve your life, to help support what we're doing in the office. Whether you're an active patient now, whether you've been a patient in the past, or whether you're looking to become one, I hope that you start to install all of these components, because the more things that we do, they become synergistic. It's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 11. And if we have almost 11 things that we can do, it becomes, how do you have the roadmap to become healthy? The reason that I came up with the owner's manual was because I take a look at what it takes to become healthy. And when I first graduated school, although I was very excited about chiropractic, I recognized that it wasn't the whole story. Over the course of almost 20 years now, what I've done is I've added pieces. I've borrowed things from many of my mentors. I've added a few, many times because I've given this workshop over 500 times. Some of them came from audience members and were not things that I had originally thought of, but as they developed, it became one unit, and it became the things that help you experience your most optimum health. So today, we're going to start with the O. O stands for oxygen. Every single cell in your body requires oxygen, and many times, we don't even stop to think about, why is it that we need oxygen? So I want to start with the simple answer. There's a process that every single cell in our body has to do to create energy. Our bodies are incredibly energy inefficient, so they require a continual supply of energy. The process is called the Krebs cycle. Every single cell in our body uses the Krebs cycle to a varying degree. Some cells don't do a lot, but some cells use it extremely. The most intense use of the Krebs cycle happens up in the brain. It's the #1 use of oxygen in our body. Every single cell in our body requires oxygen in order to produce something called ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. That's the juice, the power, the gas that runs each and every one of our cells. So we have to have oxygen on a regular basis. Without oxygen, the cells start to die. With enough cell death, we start to die from the organ systems up through the entire body. So we need oxygen. As I said, every cell in our body requires oxygen, and we need to be replacing it on an ongoing basis. All of the staff members in my office are CPR certified. Our CPR instructor reminded us that not only every cell requires oxygen, but literally after 4 minutes, we start the process of brain death. And after about 10 minutes, we become brain dead. And when your brain's dead, you're dead. That's the way that it works. So oxygen is very important. We need it to make the muscles move, but we also need to make it for the brain to function. Our brain really only runs on 3 things. It runs on oxygen, it runs on glucose, and it runs on activation. How do we get activation? Through proper spinal motion. 90% of the activation to the brain comes from spinal motion, but the other things that it require come from the foods that we eat. But even if you don't eat any sugar whatsoever, your body can make glucose out of protein. But we have to have oxygen. We have to have it on an ongoing basis. So how do we get oxygen? The obvious answer, we have to breathe. And you're going to breathe without thinking about it. It's a totally unconscious activity, but the unique thing is it's one of the activities that we have some conscious control over. The challenge is most of the time we're not breathing the way that we need to help support the body. So I want to start with a couple of stories. I have 2 of the most unique activities that have happened in my life that I'd like to talk with you about today. The first one was September 18th, 2012. My first child was born. Her name's Shelby. She was born in our home. We had an at-home birth, and I had the honor of being able to catch her. Just to mention it, not to leave her out, that on December 30th, 2013, Sierra was born. I got to catch her as well. She was also born at home. But Shelby was the first one that I ever had this experience with. The midwives at our house told me that as the baby comes out, my job is to catch her and hold her underwater. I wasn't okay with that. It took me a couple of moments. I was thinking that she has to breathe. Of course, she's been breathing through the umbilical tube for the last 9 months. So everything was okay, but what happens is the baby comes out into a transition of warm water, and it takes a couple of seconds. It felt like a very long time, but it was really only about 30 seconds. And then when she opens her eyes, then we transition her into breathing air. It's a much more gentle transition, but the first thing that happened is her belly just expanded, and then she let out a cry. I want to tell you another story. This one's obviously not as much fun, but equally important in my life. It was December 28th, 2011. I was in the room when my grandmother passed away. I actually watched her take her last breath. She died of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, which is when the lungs aren't working. I think her official diagnosis was heart disease, but it was her lungs that got her. She'd been a smoker for 40 years. She did quit smoking, and she lived to 89 years old. She didn't do many of the 11 things that we'll talk about in the owner's manual, but she did do a couple of them. She breathed, and she at least drank water. Those were about the only two things and she got chiropractic care. My grandmother, we called her Nana. She was very important in my life, and as I said, I was in the room with her when she passed away. Her very last couple of breaths were right here. You could see that she was just straining for breath, right up in her upper shoulders. So the question that I'm going to ask you is this: which way do you think we're designed to breathe as healthy? Of course, the obvious answer is we're supposed to take that deep belly breath. When I ask most people to take a deep breath in, they raise their shoulders. Just like someone that's sick or near the end of their life, it's a stressed event. It stimulates what we call the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is that fight and flight nervous system. It's the part of the system that we activate when we're under stress. But if we breathe from our belly and we expand our chest, what that is that puts our body in what we call the parasympathetic. That's the rest, digest, and heal portion of the nervous system. So as we talk about breathing, the most important component is how do you breathe, is what part of your body are you expanding? Are you activating the flight and flight, or are you activating that rest, digest, and heal? There's an activity or an exercise that I'd like to share with you. It only takes a couple of moments. It's called 4 square breathing. And what do we do with 4 square breathing? You're going to breathe in for the count of 4, hold your breath in for the count of 4, breathe out for the count of 4, hold your breath out for the count of 4. Of course, with that breath, you want that deep belly breath. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold out for 4. We'll do that 4 cycles. Ideally, do it 4 times per day. At minimum, do it 4 times per week. It can change your life. This has been Dr. Ray Nannis with Optimum Wellness Solutions. Today we've been talking about oxygen as a part of your delivery of the Optimum Wellness Solution. Okay. Because our bodies are incredibly energy yeah. So every single cell in our body requires oxygen in order to produce. I want to tell a couple of stories about, or I want to, blah, 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 blah. And we did, as we were doing that, our CPR instructor informed us, and it was something of course that he was reminding reminding of us. Of course, she's been breathing through the eustachian tube. Wrong thing. I was trying to get dates in my head, so. I want to tell you another story. This one's not as much fun, but it was equal blah, 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 blah. This one you're going to have to edit. Just try not to make a whole lot of editing.
Edit a little.
Hope you edited a bit. All right. Today we've been discussing oxygen, and I hope we are there. I have to do the fingers, don't you? I can't do that. I can't get the numbers right and think about them. I can't do the four square breathing.
You can't go.
I can do it. I can try it. Okay, we'll try it.
Is that all
Ready?
yet?
Oh no, I'm waiting for that to go off. All right, while I'm waiting for that to go off, I'm gonna get some water. Okay.
Now we're ready.
I wish I could remember exactly what I do each time for the introduction, but.
Stop typing for a moment.
And also, dang it, Ray, get the words right. I can do this in front of live people all day long.
I'm here.
Yes.
I'm enthralled.